Good evening, everyone. My name is Paul, and I'm an alcoholic. And one of the nice things about coming to Alcoholics Anonymous is that you're introduced rather than explained, you know? No, it's not like the old days. There's a guy over there, don't buy him any drink, don't loan him any money, you know? But it's a privilege to be asked to speak at any meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, but it's indeed an honor to be asked to speak here. And I want to say that Rhode Island might be small in size, but they're big in spirit. And the love that we've been shown since the moment we arrived here is second to none. And say Jerry and her husband Al and Joe and Felicia and Jack have just made us feel so welcome from the moment we arrived here, and we've had a wonderful time. And I'm up in a room here. I got 3 women in my room. You know, I've got a beautiful room. I got my wife, I got my 4-year-old daughter, and I got my mother-in-law. Serenity now, you know. Normally when I walk up to a podium it's with a sense of apprehension, I'm a little nervous. It's almost with a relief tonight because this is possibly the only time this weekend that I'll get to finish a sentence, you know. So I'm grabbing it with both hands, you know. No, I shouldn't say that. My wife's a non-alcoholic, and like many of you can attest here tonight, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the love and prayers of a non-alcoholic. That's the God's honest truth. You know, for the people that are here from Al-Anon, I welcome you. I welcome you to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And my wife keeps me on my toes. I was driving home from a meeting there one night, and my wife was with me, and I had just spoken. And we're driving along, and my wife says to me, "That person you were talking about earlier on, I'd really like to meet him." Any chance he's coming over anytime soon? He sounds like a wonderful person, you know, and I wanted to say the old, you know, what we say there stays there when we leave there, but I thought better of it, you know. And I myself, I'm fascinated by non-alcoholics. I really am, you know. I was in a bar recently at a function with my wife, and the place was packed. And I pushed up to the bar, and I got my wife a drink, and I got myself a soft drink, and I brought them back, and I give the drink to my wife, and we're talking to different people, and a few minutes later she says to me, "Can you get me another drink?" And I said, "Well, what happened to the drink I just got you?" And she says, "Well, I set it down, and I don't know where I set it." I'm saying, "You set it down, and you don't know where you set it? Are you telling me you lost it? Is that what you're telling me? You lost your drink?" See, as an alcoholic, I'm flabbergasted by this, you know. I know, I've lost my car, you know. Now that I can understand, you know. I've lost my job. I mean, haven't we all? I've lost a week off the calendar, you know. Oops, you know. And I'm like almost getting indignant. I can tell you now with any fear of reproach or recrimination, I have never, ever lost a drink, you know. It's impossible for an alcoholic to lose a drink because we're holding on to that thing like grim death, which in most of our cases isn't too far away, you know. But it's good to be here, and it's good to be sober, and I want to thank everyone from last night, the countdown and everything, and as you probably realised, I'm not from the neighbourhood, you know. It's about 20 years now since I left my native Cuba, and Jorge was saying last night that he had trouble with English. Well, that makes 2 of us, Jorge, because I'm going to make you look good, you know, but Glenn Kay is actually running 2 CDs right now. He's got an English-speaking version for those people that are broke and purred, that can't understand what I'm saying. And then we have a pop-up book for the newcomers who just can't put anything together at all, you know, no matter what language it's in, you know. But I absolutely love Alcoholics Anonymous. This is the last thing I tried and the first thing that worked, you know, and if you're new here at Alcoholics Anonymous, I want to welcome you. I want to welcome you to the greatest fellowship on the face of this earth. And not only is it a fellowship, it's a program, a design for living that works under all conditions where you won't have to drink no matter what, one day at a time. And I was an alcoholic who drank one day at a time. And then we're here tonight. And why do we come to look at all the years of sobriety that was celebrated here tonight? And why do we keep coming? I know how the movie goes. I've seen the show before. But I come here to freely give what was freely given to me. As far as I'm concerned, Alcoholics Anonymous without the newcomer is just a room full of noise. It makes no sense to me. And if you're new here tonight, I want to welcome you. I need you, and hopefully you need me. I believe Alcoholics Anonymous is like a backwater pond. It needs fresh water. If it doesn't get fresh water, it becomes stagnant. And nothing grows in stagnant water. I die, you die, we all die. What's the point? So I need you here. And because we know that this isn't some sales pitch behind me. I'm not going to stand up here like some snake oil salesman and promise you the moon and the stars. But if you're new here in Alcoholics Anonymous, maybe you won't get everything back that you lost through drinking. But it's been my experience that you'll be able to live with the consequences of your drinking if you put this program in your life. And maybe you're sitting out there tonight and saying, Paul, that's okay for you guys. You're all celebrating years and years of sobriety. You don't know where I'm coming from. Well, maybe our stories are not identical. But I'll tell you something. You've heard that analogy, you walk 10 miles into the forest and you have to walk 10 miles out. I like to look at it a little differently. I don't care how deep and how dark and how painful your forest is right now. As far as I'm concerned, you're just 12 steps away from a new life. That's all. Just 12 steps away. "12 steps away from a brand new life." Alcoholics Anonymous give me the ability to live 2 lives in one lifetime. You know? And people saying, hey, I got my life back. I don't want my life back. It sucked. You want it? Go right ahead. I don't want it. Are there people that are in my life when I was drinking? Absolutely. But things are different today. Before I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, I was out there. And where was I? I was lost in a sea of booze. And it wasn't a glacial drift either. It was a fast clip to nothingness and nowhere. And if there was any coordinates, it was pain and misery. And every once in a while, I'd hit dry land. But everything I built was built on sand. And one drink came along and washed the whole lot away, with more debris than the last time. Because of Alcoholics Anonymous, my world is built on concrete today. And the world out there, which it will, can huff and it can puff. But if I stay close to the principles and the fellowship and the God of my understanding, I don't have to drink no matter what, one day at a time. As you say in the old South Bronx script, it's a cinch by the inch and it's hard by the yard. We do it one day at a time. You know, and if you're out here, and I understand, what I love, and we were just saying this to Jerry earlier on, I come to Alcoholics Anonymous, and this is the only place you can walk into a room full of strangers and start reminiscing. I mean, really. Because the minute you say you're an alcoholic, I know. I mightn't have stood next to you drinking, but I know. I know that you've experienced terror, frustration, bewilderment, and despair. I know you put a drink to your lips as the tears rolled down your face and you drank it anyway. I know you drank when you're mad, sad, glad, didn't know why you got started and couldn't stop once you did. I know that friends and family and loved ones pleaded with you not to drink and you drank. I know you walked the floorboards in the morning wondering where in God's name you're going to get the money for an eye-opener. I know you stood outside bars and liquor stores wondering were they ever going to open because every nerve end in your body was screaming for a drink. I know that because you tell me you're an alcoholic. I know that because I'm an alcoholic. I know where you're coming from. And we're blessed to be here. I used to say, we're the chosen ones. And the guy said to me, what's that mean? The guy who's drinking's unchosen? It's been my experience that God's grace is like the rain. It falls on everybody. I just don't know when that drop of rain fell on my face that I had that moment of clarity and wiped it away. And the guy down the bar didn't get it and drank himself to death. I don't know. But I know what we're doing here is important, because what are we doing here? We're keeping that door open for the still sick and suffering alcoholic. I wouldn't have to go knock on too many doors in Newport and I'll find somebody right now drinking themselves to death. And we have to be here. As far as I'm concerned, Alcoholics Anonymous is not only a miracle of the 20th century, but all 20th centuries. Because as it says in one of our books, since man first crushed grapes, there's been people like us. Couldn't fit in, took drink, couldn't fit in, ran at life with drink, ran away from life. We were society's first outcasts, on the outside looking in. The dead enders, the bitter enders, nobody understands me. This stop the world, I want to get off philosophy. We can all identify. And because of that blessed event, when Bill Wilson sat down with Robert Smith, and they said to themselves, I wonder, by trying to help you get sober, can I stay sober? The turning point of all our lives, past and present. And these weren't stupid men. These were two intelligent men that were drinking themselves to death. And they sat there and they put it on the table like we do. And they poured it out there, the humanity. And that's what we do in Alcoholics Anonymous here. We bare our souls because we know this isn't beanbag. This is life or death. If I hadn't stopped drinking, drinking was going to stop me. I believe of all terminal illness, this is the most terminal. You know, and these two guys, that blessed event in all our lives, past and present, when this disease was finally dragged out of the dark ages and into the modern era. And I feel so blessed that it was all here when I got here. I never took sobriety for granted, but I'll tell you something, I took AA for granted. There's a meeting over there, it meets 3 nights a week, it's there, I'm there, what's the big deal? And then you read the history of Alcoholics Anonymous, and you realize a left turn there, and a right turn there, and who knows where we might be today. You know, and this is the greatest event in my life, walking through the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous. Because I finally found out what was wrong with me. I found out everything I need to know. I found out in Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Paul and I'm an alcoholic. And it tells me who I am and what I am and where I am and most importantly what I need to be doing. And if I do that, I'm all right. And when I'm all right, everything and everybody around me is all right too. AA allowed me to come to terms with the past so I could live in the present for the future, which is the rest of today. It took this broken down drunkard, a hopeless drunkard, a world hater, a people hater, and brought me back into the fold of humanity. I came from the dark side of the mountain, as Bill Wilson talks about, into the sunlight of the Spirit. And you people were here. And that's what I asked myself each day in my 10th step. Make my link strong. Make it strong not to the people who went ahead of me, but to the people coming behind me. So if someone says to me, Paul, can you take me on that journey? Can you take me to that place of peace and happiness and serenity? Can you take me to that place where I'll no longer regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on? Can I go there? Absolutely. Walk with us. And what do? We walk together. We do together what I can't do alone. And we trudge this road. We walk with purpose. There's a purpose to my life. There's meaning to my life. There's a rhythm to my life. I'm not sitting in some bar half drunk on a Saturday night in Newport wondering what it's all about. I know what it's about today. Alcoholics Anonymous for me is a reality check on a daily basis. This is where the rubber meets the road. And I'm so blessed to be here because the vast majority of alcoholics died drunk. They don't even hear of AA. So I feel richly blessed that I got here, I heard a message and came back for more. So it's a program of attraction, not promotion. If you're new, look around you. See who has what you want. Ask them how they got it. And we do it one day at a time. I remember reading a great story one time about a Special Olympics event. And these children all had Down, and it reminded me of, it was so indicative of Alcoholics Anonymous. They had Down syndrome. And it was one lap around the track. And they all started running, and within a matter of yards, the field was strung out of different capabilities of running. And what happened? The leaders got towards the finish line, and what did they do? They waited for everyone else. And they all held hands, and they ran through the finish line together. That's AA for me. Maybe you're getting it tough today. Maybe you're not getting it good. But we put our heads down in the bed tonight and put another sober day in the bank. Maybe everything didn't go well. Maybe you're new to Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's a hit and a miss. It's a swing and a miss, and a swing and a miss, and a swing and a miss. But you don't drink. You keep coming back, and your life can change. And you start to hit home runs, and you start swinging for the fences. But if you're drinking, you don't even get in the game. So please, whatever you do, don't take that first drink. It's all here for you. And you can work this program from the first day you get here. My part is, Am I working? We have an emblem. I hear there's a lot of newcomers here tonight. We have a symbol in Alcoholics Anonymous, or an emblem, the triangle. And there's 3 parts to that triangle: unity, service, and recovery. And that's what I ask myself. Am I doing all 3 parts to the triangle? I wasn't always. I remember when I first came to Alcoholics Anonymous and I understood the unity. I said many meetings make it easy, few make it hard, none make it impossible. I got that. Remember a guy says to me, what about service, Paul? Service? I'm making more coffee than Juan Valdez. You kidding me? Service? Okay, so what about door number 3, Paul? The steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's my belief we don't do the steps because they're nice. We do them because they're necessary for recovery. If you want to get physically and mentally and spiritually and emotionally rehabilitated, you have to work this program. I know of no other way. But even before I got into the steps, I was able to use those slogans as the banisters to the steps, and the people here that helped me. I would not be here if it wasn't for another alcoholic, and I'm not going to go into a long drunk-a-log, but I'll tell you this here. Before I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, and when I first came to AA, I got into a lot of mental gymnastics. Why did I become an alcoholic? Where did I become an alcoholic? When did I become an alcoholic? The old thing, what came first, the chicken or the keg, I realize today I just have to accept the fact that I'm an alcoholic. But if I was to speculate, and I'd only speculate in my own case, it was a case of alcohol in a bottle and alcoholism in a person. I had a lot of the traits of this disease long before a drink ever passed my lips. As a kid growing up in Northern Ireland, I was irritable, discontent. I had that stone in the shoe feeling. When I was over there, I wanted to be over here. When I was upstairs, I wanted to be downstairs. If you asked me what was wrong, I couldn't have told you. But something's not just right. Real alky stuff, all below the radar, other side of the horizon, And then I took drink. There's been 2 turning points in my life. The first night I took drink, and the first night I walked in the meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. Basically, both times I was looking for the same thing. It's been said that alcoholism is a form of spiritual thirst. It's not a very elevated form, but a form nonetheless. I was always looking for an outside fix for what's really an inside job. I was always looking for a 3-dimensional solution to what's really a 4th-dimensional problem. Lack of power was my dilemma, and I sought power in booze and people and places and things. And every victory that I had before I came here was purely symbolic. The real deal is in Alcoholics Anonymous. But I didn't know I took that drink, and that booze, it filled all the holes. It took off all the rough edges. The stone came out of the shoe. The top button felt like it was opened. I took a deep breath and I said, this is it. And for a chronic people-pleasing alcoholic like me with low self-esteem, it was a magic elixir. It was a potion. But looking back on it, was a Faustian bargain. I made a deal with the devil. Booze will give you a lift. It'll give me a lift. But when it comes time to paying the freight, watch out. In the Merchant of Venice, Shylock just wanted 1 pound of flesh, not this disease. It'll take your job, your car, your wife, the shirt off your back. But what it really wants is me 6 feet under. But you couldn't have told me as a kid starting out. I took that drink. It was doing everything for me. Looking back on it, I was probably a symptom looking for disease. Basically, And my life started to fall apart in short order. But I'm an alcoholic. I never want to look in. I want to look out. I'm a finger pointer. I'm growing up in Northern Ireland. I'm a working class Catholic from the wrong side of the tracks. At the height of the troubles, I got a big chip on my shoulder. In fact, a guy said to me one time, and he says, you know something, Paul? You're a well-balanced guy. And I said to myself, finally, somebody that knows what they're talking about around here, He said, yeah, you got a chip on both shoulders, I hated everything. I hated everybody. But I was starting to despise the man I was becoming. But I'm into the blame game. And it was not me. And I was blaming Northern Ireland. And I remember thinking to myself, this country, it's no good. It's not real. My potential's not being realized here in Northern Ireland, And I come home and I said to my father, I said, listen, Dad, sit down. I got something to tell you. I said, listen, I'm going to America. And don't try and talk me out of it. He says, talk you out of it? I'll help you pack when you're leaving. On you go, Columbus. Let me give you some fatherly advice. Turn left at Greenland, you know. I said, I'll show them. Within a month, they'll be sending begging letters. That was 22 years ago. I'm still waiting, you know. But, and I jumped on the only airline to fly if you're an alcoholic, Aer Lingus, Ireland's national airline. I don't know if you've ever flown Aer Lingus. It's a drunkard's dream. You get on the plane's still going down, the plane's taxiing, and already the cabin crew's getting the drinks card out at the back of the plane. The plane's at like a 45-degree angle, and the cabin staff are like Sherpas, you know, pushing up to the front, you know. You look at your headrest, and it's like a grappling hook, you know. Like, do you want ice with that drink, you know? And like driftwood, I washed up in a place in New York called Rockaway Beach. Now, I don't know if you know Rockaway Beach. There's two types, yes, some of you know it. There's two types of people in Rockaway Beach, those that are in AA and those that should be in AA, you know? You know, with the alcoholics, we got that built-in GPS system. You know, you can blindfold me and put me in a sack. I'm going to offend a neighborhood that drinks as much, if not more than the one I just left. And you talk about Rockaway Beach to people who sort of know it, and they go, oh, it's a big Irish-American neighborhood. And they go, oh, Rockaway Beach, the Irish Riviera. What it should have been called was Cirrhosis by the Sea. I mean, it's funny, and Joe was saying this last night. What is it with alcoholics? You know, we're like drawn to water. You know what I mean? I don't know what it is. I don't. From Maine to Miami, you go to any beach town, and you'll see one of us stumbling around in the sand. You know. And you can always tell the alcoholic, you know, we got that sunburn in one half of the body. You know. Where we falling asleep. You know. Hey, how you doing? You know. And then I made my next biggest mistake. I got a job as a bartender. Now, I know of all drinking crazy bars, and I worked in the craziest of the craziest bar. This place made the bar from Star Wars look like the Oak Room at the Plaza. I mean, really, it was the sort of a bar you got thrown into rather than out of, you know? I often say this bar had it all. Alcoholics, drug addicts, degenerate gamblers, and that was just the staff. That wasn't even the customers, you know? I'll give you a mental picture of this bar and then I'll move on. If you want to see a full set of teeth in this bar, you needed 32 customers. That's male and female, you know. Once in a while, a glamour girl would stumble in with like 3 teeth, you know, and upset the whole ecosystem of the bar, you know. I must tell you a funny story with this bar. These two guys took this bar over and they wanted to like jazz it up and so forth and run Monday Night Football and chicken wings and all this stuff. And one of the first things they did was they said, we're going to have a Halloween party. I said to myself, I don't know if you've been seeing some of the women that come into this bar, but every night is Fright Night, you know what I mean? But if you want to make it official with a Halloween party, you know, go right ahead, you know. So it's one of those stories where the truth is stranger than fiction. All these whack jobs show up and dressed in costumes and whatnot, and I said to myself, this is too good to be true. And sure enough, 2 o'clock in the morning, a huge fight breaks out. I mean, a real Donnybrook, you know. And I look across the bar, and it's one of those moments that's frozen in time. I see Superman getting his lights punched out by a parrot. I mean, this guy's getting his lunch handed to him, you know, and to make matters worse, Sleeping Beauty's screaming at me, do something, do something. He's going to kill him, you know, and I'm saying, listen, he's the one with the cape, you know. He's the one with the kryptonite, don't be looking at me. I got 3 words for your friend, quantum of solace, you know, but this is the sort of bar I was working in. But see, water finds its own level. I fit it in there like a glove, you know. I'm not going to go into the whole ins and outs, but I've experienced every form of drinking. I was a weekend drinker, a daily drinker, morning drinking, binge drinking. But the drinking that done this alcoholic in, I became a periodic alcoholic. And the drunks got longer in duration, and the period between them got shorter. Now I'm starting to do things like this has been a perfect time. I'll stop for Lent, and I'll stop for this, and I'll stop for that. And I'm swearing, I'm doing a lot of stuff to talk about in chapter 3. I'm swearing on your life, I'm swearing on my life. I'm making notes, I'm making proclamations, and I drink again, and I drink again, and I drink again. The big book talks about the alcoholic being the bewildered one. Well, nobody's any more confused than me. I read one time that Dr. Bob said he felt weak as a person because he feels so miserably that something he wanted to do so well, which was not drink. Boy, I can identify with that. You know, I would sit there and I would drink again, I would drink again. And I said, but why am I drinking the way that I'm drinking? I thought it was lack of morals and no good. Lack of willpower. If I had more willpower, I could have half a dozen drinks and go home. Lack of discipline. I was always a rebel buck in the system. Or my ace in the hole was punishment from God. I got to Alcoholics Anonymous and I found out none of those reasons are true. I drink alcoholically because I suffer from a disease called alcoholism. And for a long period of my life, alcohol was a suitable treatment for the disease called alcoholism. But it stopped working. And that's the trouble. Alcohol gave me the wings to fly, and then it took away the sky. And booze failed me completely. And I'm sitting in my apartment drinking around the clock against my own will. And booze became the common denominator in my life. Every decision I made was divided through drink at least once. I don't care if it's from going to here to the lobby. There's enough booze to get me there, enough when I get there, enough to get me back. And when you live your life under those parameters, your life gets smaller and smaller with less people in it. You know, one day. See, I didn't realize the catch-22. My life doesn't get better when I stop drinking. My life gets worse. A drinking problem is solved by not drinking. I suffer from alcoholism, and that puts me in a whole different category than the heavy or normal drinker. Alcoholism, it's physical, it's mental, it's spiritual, it's wrapped up in a body full of sick emotions. Oh, I stopped drinking. Physically, I might feel better. Aesthetically, I might look better. But where the rubber meets the road, emotionally and spiritually, I'm a beaten docket. I'm a blank page. Put an X in the calendar, because I'm drinking again. And nobody's any more surprised than me. I'll tell you a story. I went into alcoholic convulsions one night in a bar, and I woke up strapped to a bed in a hospital. And there was somebody near and dear to me that was standing there. And they finally took the restraining cuffs off, and I reached out, and I said, I will never, ever drink again. And I meant that with every ounce of conviction in my body. But here's what happens to this alcoholic when I stop drinking without a fellowship and a program and a power greater than myself in my life. I stop drinking, a week goes by, the stone's back in the shoe. 2 weeks go by, the knot's in the stomach. 3 weeks go by, the top button feels tight all the time. A month goes by, it feels like everybody's on my case, even if they're not. Put an X in the calendar, I'm drinking again. I can't live that way. And I drink again. And that person says, I got to get away from you, or I'm going to end up in an asylum. And where do I go? I'll tell you where I go. I go to barroom mentality. I don't need you. I don't need nobody. And the exact opposite is true. I'd like to tell you that I came to AA a few weeks after that. I drank for 3 or 4 more years after that. Hit bottoms I didn't know existed. Bottoms to more bottoms. But because of Alcoholics Anonymous, I'll tell you how I got sober. Here's how God works in my life. Susan was at work one day, and I was drinking around the clock. I've been on like a 3-week drunk. Locked in the house, drinking around the clock. Barroom drinking's a memory now. It's by the quart off the bedside table. I used to have convulsions and seizures coming off drink. Now I'm having them while I'm drinking, DTs. And I would see people going by. I lived in an apartment, and I think of my parents 3,000 miles away. And I was thinking to myself, I'll never see them again. And if you ask me why, I couldn't have told you. I could have told you why going in. But now coming out the other end, I can't tell you. Why did I take that first drink? I could never bring, as it says in the book, to sufficient force the memory of previous drinking. And I go in the threadbare idea that this time it's going to be different. As we all do. People talk about the insanity of an alcoholic. I worked as a bartender. People talk about that's just drunken behavior. You give enough booze to a non-alcoholic, believe me, they'll do crazy things. Insanity for this alcoholic is me walking into a bar, stone cold, physically sober, and telling myself it's okay to drink again when it's not. That's the moment of insanity in this guy. And Bill Wilson talks about the alcoholic can be making rational decisions in other areas. Not that I really was, but you could be. But when it comes to alcohol, I go dark. A blind spot comes over, and I drink again. And I drink against my own will. And then one drink creates a thirst I can't quench. And that was the insanity for me, the rationalization of the first drink while physically sober. And here I am on this drunk again, and I would see people going by, and I wanted to be where they were. I couldn't. Alcoholics Anonymous built a bridge from there to where they are. You cannot get from where I was to where I am today without Alcoholics Anonymous. You just can't. You can't make that journey. Frank Mauser used to talk about the alcoholic and sitting there drinking around the clock, the unlived life, just sitting there going through the motions and hating myself and the self-loathing that goes with this disease and the recrimination. Susan was at work. She broke down crying, and this woman says, "Why is that woman crying?" She said, she's got this on again, off again boyfriend. He's been drinking for weeks. Nobody knows if he's alive or dead. They might have to break the door down. And the woman says, my father's got a friend who's in this thing called Alcoholics Anonymous. Want me to get his number? Got the number, was put under my door, the guy's telephone number on it. I was in so much pain, I picked up the phone and I called a complete stranger. This guy had been in AA since 1961. His name was Jerry C. He lives in Daytona Beach now. Drank himself in out of straitjackets. And he says to me, "Paul," I said, "I can't stop drinking, I can't stop drinking." He says, "You can't stop drinking because you're an alcoholic." I said, "Maybe my accent's throwing you off, I didn't say I was an alcoholic, We're getting lost in translation here, He said, "I'm going to come over to your house." He says, "Paul, do you believe in God?" I came out with that tired, almost fatigued response we do in AA. "Yeah, but he doesn't believe in me." See, I grew up in Northern Ireland, where people used to shoot each other outside the front door of a religion. We were burnt out of our house in the middle of the night in '73 by the opposing paramilitaries. I used to say, "God, he never came down our street very often, but you go on ahead if that's what you want to believe." And when I parted my ways from my higher power, it wasn't some top of the mountain, Charlton Heston, thunder and lightning. That's not how it worked in my life. It was very subtle. It's just like a plane flying off course. It doesn't have to go way off course, just 1 degree, but long enough and far enough, you'll be lost. And I was completely lost. And I drifted away from all that was good. And here I was, me running the show, 30 years of age, sitting drinking against my own will. That was the extent of me running the show with both hands on the wheel. So Jerry said, "Listen, why don't you get down on your knees and I'm coming over to help you." And for the first time in maybe 20 years, with any degree of authenticity, I got down on my knees and I said, "If there's anything out there, please help me." And I felt like someone walked up behind me and took a great weight off my shoulders. And a sense of peace came over me that I've never experienced before or since. And I started to worry and fret, and this other feeling kept suppressing it, that I'm sitting on the floor totally at peace. And this thought came into my head, "You don't have to drink again if you don't want to." I know I didn't put those thoughts there, and Jerry came to the door. I told him what I just told you. He says, "Paul, you have a spiritual experience. It'll get you sober, but it won't keep you sober. You got to get to Alcoholics Anonymous." Because Jerry realized the importance of the fellowship, the program, the whole 3 parts to the triangle. This guy, Jerry C., and I'd like to mention this, he was 6 years sober in 1967, and he sat in Bill Wilson's office across the desk from him. And Jerry, by his own admission, had been carrying a few things around that he couldn't let go. He was 6 years off drinking. Bill Wilson told him, "Don't carry the load alone. People have paid a heavy price for doing that." And Jerry took his advice, but didn't use it, and got drunk 2 weeks later. The good news is he's been sober since 67 till now. But he tells that story not by way of saying he knew Bill Wilson. He tells that story by way of saying, if you're not willing to do what's required around here, even sitting talking one-on-one with the co-founder won't keep you sober. And I found that to be true, that AA is not for people that need it. It's not even for people that want it. It's for people that do it. You do it, you get it, and you don't do it, you don't get it. It's that simple. And Jerry realized that with me. But he brought me to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous 4 days later. And as I said earlier on, walking through the doors of AA has the greatest singular event in my life. I have to think about what's second. It's so far and above. And I had lost it all. I'd lost you, I'd lost him, and I'd lost me. And I got all three back, courtesies of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm glad they didn't have a clipboard at the door the first night I got here, because I would have checked the box for not drinking. But alcohol is only mentioned the first half of the first step. The rest of those steps helped me to do something I couldn't do drunk or sober, and that's live out there in God's world one day at a time. A world that I perceived to be rude and crude, unjust, indifferent, and they're all out to get me. I could never fully understand who they were, but they're out there and they're going to get me, you know. And I came into AA, and I made my next biggest mistake. I diagnosed myself as having an alcohol problem. And I almost died in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous because I thought my problem was alcohol. I just thought I was trying to put the plug in the jug. Now we've all got plugs in the jug. If nobody moves, we'll be all right, you know. Well, people are moving down the road of recovery. And what was I doing? It was really what I was like. Jerry went down to Florida, and I walked around here making, and you can do that, making all the right noises, getting the sound bites down when it came to my turn to share. But I was keeping everybody, you know, well, the Irish are like that. We're a little emotionally challenged, you know. I mean, like, you know, the hug, and I just stood over here and keep everybody at arm's length. People say, how you doing, Paul? Oh, I'm doing wonderful. And you got a fried eggs in the back of my neck. I'm ready to explode. I walk around the meeting here, I'm smiling, but it's often the teeth out. And you can fool them at 7:30 at night, but you're not fooling anybody at 3:30 in the morning. When I be lying there with the could-haves and the should-haves and the would-haves, I was walking around Alcoholics Anonymous with two hefty bags full of garbage. I was carrying stuff around from the schoolyard, and I'm defending it, and I'm justifying it, and I'm rationalising it, but you don't understand. And you see, if I go down, this is the difference about AA in real life. Well, if I go down the street and I tell someone, you know what happened to me growing up in Northern Ireland? You know what happened to me? Oh, Paul, that's terrible. But in AA that says, it doesn't matter, Paul. You have to forgive. You have to forgive to get free. AA eventually allowed me to get free from the one person I could never get free from, which is me. It allowed me to live in the one place I could never live, which was right here and right now. And I was in Alcoholics Anonymous. You know what I was like? I was like a starving man at a spiritual banquet. All this food was on offer, and I'm over in the corner on bread and water. And I'm dying from the inside out of untreated alcoholism in AA. It's one thing to be dying in a bar. It's another thing to be dying in here. Please, the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is easier, softer way. I was 2 years off drink. I was thousands upon thousands of dollars in debt. You know what I was trying to do? I was still trying to fill the hole. I was still trying to fill the hole in my soul. There's not enough stuff out there to fill the hole in my soul. There's only one thing that can fill that hole, and it's a power greater than me that I must find through the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And when you're out of ideas, you're out of ideas. I tried everything else. And the guy said to me, Paul, finally a guy got me, and he said to me, Paul, he says, you know what? He says, you're dying. And the sad news is you're dying in AA. And the sad news is the help is right here. And I realized that we must do this program. If I want to get physically and mentally and spiritually well, I have to work the program of AA. And it's a program of attraction. I say I was a wanter. I would say, oh, I want what he has. I said, well, you better find out what he's doing. And invariably it was the program of AA. See, I had all these preconceived ideas. Listen, it wasn't like I was against the steps. I just didn't understand how they can change a person. I didn't understand a spiritual awakening. For me, I'm a different person than I was before I started the program of AA. I look at life differently today. Clancy talks about being a disease of perception. That's true. Chuck Chamberlain talks about a new pair of glasses. That's true too. I look at life differently today. I was a screwball neurotic, obsessed by negativity. The glass was always half empty. And I put that program in my life. And the reason I did it was I was carrying those two things around. carrying all this stuff around in my head, and I wanted to be free. I wanted what you people had. You see, I found out resentment is indeed the number one offender. And I had all these people up here. My prison was between my two ears. I had all these people up here in this mental prison. And just like a regular prison, I had to do roll call every morning. Why they were there and what they did to me, and replay it and regurgitate all this form of spiritual sickness and disease. It was only when I opened the door of the cell and let them go free that I got to go free too. And that's what I had to do. And that's what I did, because I wanted to be free in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'll tell you what that did for me. Once I had the program of Alcoholics Anonymous in my life, and believe me, I'm not a perfect man. I strive for averageness. Perfection is a hope and a dream, an illusion, and get me drunk. I work the first step perfectly, and everything else is up for grabs on a daily basis. But I'll tell you what that program did for me. Because I put those principles in my life, I got the chance to turn around and bring somebody else to the program of AA. And that's when my life caught on fire. That's when my life took on new meaning. That's when I came to realize the promises of my life. When I took another man, and you meet a guy on the worst day of his life, and you bring him through the program. You see, sometimes I don't see the miracle in my own life. I'm too locked into my own life. I'm all subjective when it comes. My Holy Trinity's me, me, me. You know, I can't see past me. But I can see the miracle in other people. And that tells me, that reaffirms to me that this thing works, that this is the real deal, that this is the real McCoy. And it's been a great, it's been a wonderful life. As I said, Frank Capra, it's been a wonderful life. And things happen. You see, I thought Alcoholics Anonymous, and it wasn't like, I just had this misconception with the steps, all these preconceived notions. The steps, it seemed all like touchy-feely and warm and fuzzy, and I do the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and the next thing I'll be wearing flip-flops in the winter time, and have like wind chimes hanging up in the house, and carrying crystals around, It was funny, but AA makes you aware of that. I spoke at a meeting one time, and I told them about that spiritual experience that I had when I stopped drinking, and this girl, a real hippy-dippy chick, came up to me and she goes, "Hey man, it sounds like God hit you in the back of the head with a cosmic 2x4, And I was right to say to her, I think that maybe you want to change the bulb in your lava lamp, but... But I thought about it, and that's exactly what happened. God really struck me into sobriety, and eventually, as I said, there's been two surrenders in my life: surrendering to booze, and then surrendering to life on life's terms, and getting into the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. See, I thought AA would give me immunity from life. I'd walk between the raindrops. No. AA said, we will give you the ability to deal with life one day at a time, where you won't have to drink no matter what, one day at a time. That's what they promised me. And that's been my experience. If you stay sober long enough, the same things that happen to people out there are going to happen to people in here. And what do I get? I get the chance to walk through that stuff and not drink one day at a time. And there's things that have happened to me in sobriety far worse than ever happened to me drinking. I remember, and that's why I'm so glad it's a day at a time. I was 14, 15 years sober, and it was funny, we were moving house, and it was the last night that we were going to be in the apartment, and Susan was already staying at her mother's house. So I'm in the house by myself, all the furniture's gone, there's only one thing in the apartment, and it's a blow-up mattress. And I'm lying on this blow-up mattress, and at 2:30 in the morning I have this heart attack. Now, it's this congenital problem I've had since I was a child. I was a walking time bomb, didn't realize it. But let me give you some advice tonight. If you're going to have a heart attack, don't have it on a blow-up mattress. Have it in a recliner or something with a firm mattress, because those things, it's almost impossible to get out of a blow-up mattress under normal circumstances, right? You're rolling back and forth, But after a heart attack, forget about it. I'm rolling about like a fish on the deck of a ship, you know. And finally, and here's what and the point I'm telling you is because I would like to well, first of all, with the Irish, we're a little melancholy, you know. And my idea of death, you know, I would die after some really gallant act, and there'd be like an Irish ballad playing in the background, you know, maybe a lone bagpiper, you know, or. But that's not what happened. I'm stumbling around here. I finally got out of the blow-up mattress, and I'm stumbling around in my underwear, and I get Susan on the phone. I said, you know, and she says, I'm coming over. And here's the point. I would like to tell you that the first person that showed up was Spiritual Paul, but he didn't get there first. I don't think he got there second or third. I'm thinking, thanks a lot, HP. Thank you so much, you know. But to make a long story short, they rushed me to the local hospital, and they were like, listen, take him right to the Heart Hospital, Long Island Jewish, which is in the North Shore of Long Island. Now, you know it's serious when you arrive at the hospital and everybody's waiting for you, you know, and they're walking in there, and I'm like, what symptoms were you experiencing, and anything has ever happened before, and is that your wife with you? I'm like, yeah, and I see the cross around your neck, or are you a Catholic? And I'm like, why, is it better if I'm Jewish? You know, typical alcoholic. Let me keep all my options open, you never know. The surgeon walks in, I'm like, oy vey, can you believe, don't let the accent throw you off, can you believe this is happening to me? And the point I'm trying to make is, and I died on the table, I'm dead for a few minutes, I hope after death experience, go back to Ireland and everything else, and I just, I can't stay here, please let me go back. And next thing I'm back in my body, and the doctors are all around me, and they put some hardware in my chest. And the point that I'm trying to make, and Susan could probably attest to this, I finally got out of hospital, and I said to my wife, you're looking at the new me. I'm never going to get annoyed in traffic anymore. See, that's in supermarkets or stores, you know, everywhere I go, my wife says, everywhere you go, you want to be next. You know, who's next? Well, that would be me, you know, because I got places to go, you know. 30 miles an hour is okay for everybody else, but I got places to go, you know. So I said to my wife, you're going to see a new me. I'm not going to sweat the small stuff anymore. I'm going to be after this here between AA and having this after-death experience and this brush with death. And sure enough, for about the first week or two, not even that, about the first day or two, I should really say, I was like the Dalai Lama of Long Island, you know? Somebody would cut me off, I'd be like, peace be with you, my brother. I'm in no hurry. I'm in eternity, you know? God made a big world. There's room for the both of us. Then you miss a few meetings, you don't call your sponsor, and, you know, self returns. And that's what it makes me remind me of. There's things that are bedrock in my life. But there's parts of sobriety that are tenuous, and that's the way they must be. I must get my card punched on a daily basis. I must earn my serenity. I must earn my peace of mind. I never got drunk on yesterday's booze, and I can't stay sober on yesterday's spirituality. I must fill the tanks every day on the 24-hour plan. And that's what AA has taught me to do. And I've had a life in Alcoholics Anonymous beyond my wildest dreams. I remember sitting in a car with a guy, and I'm newly sober, and this guy tells me, he says, Paul, you're going to be doing a job that if you try to think about it right now, you couldn't think what that job is. I was just getting tired listening to this guy, and it was like, you know, sitting like talking to a Zen master, you know, I'm like trying to put this all together. And then he said something to me like, and also it says stuff like, and you got to stay in the day, because if you project what you think that job's going to be, you'll project in the negative. And when you project in the negative, your body doesn't know that it's projecting. And this experience and all those feelings like they're happening right now, I'm thinking this guy's like, you know, this guy's like a spiritual genius. You know, I thought he was going to be, I'm dating myself here, like the old Kung Fu show. I thought the guy was going to say, when you can take the pebble from my hand, you can leave the car, you know. But that has happened in my life. If I had sat down for 20 minutes and wrote down a series of jobs, now I bartended the first 12 years in Alcoholics Anonymous. I bartended my way with the help of my family and the help of youth people. I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. I was 30 years of age. I didn't even have a high school diploma. And all the shame and disgrace and self-loathing that went with that. Because that's the type of person I was. I took drink. And I've heard people talking about how they took drink and their drinking life was one train and their achievement life was another, and eventually the drinking train took... My achievement life came to a screeching halt the minute I put booze in my body. I was a soccer fanatic. When I was 14 or 15, I lived and breathed soccer. And I was pretty good at it too. And a couple of guys in the neighbourhood went on to make it as professional journeyman careers. I had my whole room decorated with one of my favourite teams. I took a drink. I don't think I kicked a ball 6 times after that. Booze is the dream killer. This is the miracle factory. The magic happens here. And I decided to go back to school in alcohol. In fact, my sponsor said to me, "Why don't you go back to school?" And I said, "I can't go back to school." "How can I go back to school?" He says, "Paul, how do we do things around here? We do them one day at a time. What if I fail a class? You'll take another class. And you'll take it again, and you'll take it again." I went to school one day at a time, just like the principal of this program. And you're with me when I was sitting up at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning trying to bang out another term paper. I was the oldest guy in the class. There was times I was older than the professor. It was like the class mascot, and but I kept at it one day at a time, using the principles that I learned in Alcoholics Anonymous, and sure enough, I was standing there throwing my hat in the air, and I got a degree. I thought, this is so great. I went and got another degree. Typical alcoholic, right? Then I got 2 graduate degrees in back of that there. But my sponsor always keeps me humble. He says, Paul, every time I think I'm an above the herd intellectual, he says, "Paul, remember, a thermometer's got 100 degrees, and you know what nurses do with those." So let's not get too big for your boots, And I became a teacher. I'm what's called in the New York City Board of Ed. I'm a home instruction teacher. I go to children's houses who, for a variety of reasons, can't get to school, and I get the chance to work one-on-one. See, God knows that I am self-centered in the extreme, driven by 100 forms of it. My wife catches me all the time. She'll be telling me some problem that she's going through, and I'll glaze over. And she'll say, "You're thinking how this is going to affect you, aren't you?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not." But I am, I used to try to cop out and say, "It's DNA." It's not DNA. You would think it's DNA. It's so deep and it's root and branch stuff, self-centeredness. And here I am, not only AA, but God keeps me in a job there where I'm given all the time. I'm in service from the minute I get up in the morning with these children and an Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's and it's a life beyond my wildest dreams. I got married in Alcoholics Anonymous. I became a father in Alcoholics. Don't get me wrong, booze took a lot from me. I was 40 years of age when I got married, 43 years of age when I became a father for the first time. And we weren't even planning. My wife says to me, I think I'm pregnant. I was like, "Oh my God, how can I do this? How can I do this?" And my sponsor says, "Paul, we do it one day at a time." See, I was full of fear because, you see, being a father means being responsible, being accountable, being dependable, and these are things that are all formed my nature as an alcoholic. But my sponsor says, "Paul, you're sober 12 or 13 years. You can do this one day at a time." And that young girl, maybe you've seen her running around with us here over the weekend, she's the joy of my life. Unbelievable. The miracles, the promises of Alcoholics Anonymous, my cup is full to running over with the good stuff that's happening in AA. And I'll end on a story. I was up in Maine there recently last year with her, and we're on a Ferris wheel. And we both had our hands up in the air. And she says, "Daddy, this is the greatest day of my life, and I love you so much." And I said to myself, I came this close to missing this. This close, and I didn't even know it existed. Drinking myself to death. And I came in here just to stop drinking. And I got me back, and I got you back, and I got him back. James Joyce has a great line from one of his books. He says, "Here comes everybody." We're all here. And I'm glad you are. Gender, colour, creed, if you're an alcoholic, I love you like no other person. It's unbelievable. I came here just to stop drinking, and I got so much more besides. And I just want to end on a few words from my home country. I know them off by heart, but I know if I try to do it, I won't remember them. So I brought a cheat sheet just in case, you know. And Alcoholics Anonymous in Northern Ireland, where I come from, is a special place. Talk about people who normally don't mix. How about people who never mix? But we sit in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, people from opposite sides of the community. We leave all the garbage at the door, and for an hour and a half, we become an oasis in a sea of trouble. And some of the greatest meetings of AA I was ever at were in Northern Ireland, where we talk about our common problem, our common solution, and our programme of action. And here's a few words from my home country. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. The sun shine warm upon your face. The rain fall soft upon your fields. Until we meet again, may God hold you in the hollow of his hand. God bless Rhode Island AA. Thank you so much.